Hi, welcome to SBR Forum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. This is Into the Weekend with BetDSI, the call we do every Thursday with Brent, the headlines manager at DSI Sportsbook, where we ask him a lot of questions about the most debated games coming up for the upcoming weekend of football. We get some info on sharp and public action and what sides he's going to need. Brent, thanks for being here once again.
Good to be back, Peter.
All right, now this segment has gotten so popular and we've gotten, it's gotten so expanded that we're now going to split it up into two parts. So we're going to split up college and NFL. So right now we're going to do part one. This is part one, Into the Weekend BetDSI with Brent. We're looking ahead at college week 7 right now. All right, a lot of games, a lot of lines that I want to ask you about. Let's start right in. First one, everyone's talking about it, West Virginia at Texas Tech. People are thinking that West Virginia, should have been a much bigger favorite. Texas Tech lost to Oklahoma last week. West Virginia, beat Texas. The line is held steady at 4, so I got to think huge public side, West Virginia, sharps are on Texas Tech.
I wouldn't say huge money on Texas Tech at all, or a whole lot of sharp money. We actually had sharp money when the line was 3.5 on West Virginia. It
Really?
took some pretty good action on West Virginia, minus 3.5. The count there is like 10-1 in favor of West Virginia.
Wow.
So right now, I've got public money on West Virginia. I've got sharp money on West Virginia, and I could really use your bet on Texas Tech, Peter.
No. I bet West Virginia on the opening line. I was with everyone else. So this is actually one of those games that's like half one of those public and sharps on the same side.
This is one where I've got a lot of public and sharp money on West Virginia. Basically, the only money I got back on Texas Tech was a little bit at 4.5. Now, that could be sharp guys who laid the 3.5, and taking the 4.5, hoping it lands 4, something like that. But really, I've got little to no support on Texas Tech at
All right,
this point,
so
Peter.
if your money's 10-1, then why didn't the line move?
Well, we're kind of holding strong at 4 right now, hoping for something back. And again, it's when you take money at 3 and 3.5, how far do you want to go? Because, sitting at 4, 4.5, do you want to go to 5? All of a sudden you're opening up, for a really big middle. Plus,
Right.
Remember, we do this show on Thursday night, so you got Friday, you got Saturday. We have a lot of time before game time before we make that decision, Peter.
All right, well, let's move on to another game. That did move a lot. Same situation, small road favorite that got bet way up, a lower profile game, North Carolina at Miami, Florida. This one opened at like 5 or 5.5. I personally bet Miami, Florida on the opener. Then it crept up, hit 7, and went to 7.5. So what's that all about?
That's just a ton of money on North Carolina early, 6.5 and 7. We're sitting at 7.5 right now, but we've had just a ton of volume on that game. Really, really big volume on that game. It's been a really good game for us, and it will be a good game for us so long as North Carolina doesn't win by 7. That's kind of like the worst case scenario for us. We do have a lot of heavily bet action on Miami, Florida, plus 7.5 and plus the 8, but a lot of money minus 6.5 and 7 on North Carolina. So 7 would be a bad result for us, but we've had so much volume on this game. We're split right now, so we're happy to sit back, balance, and hope it doesn't land 7, Peter.
I don't quite understand. Why would that game get so much volume? Just because everyone saw Miami, Florida get blown out by Notre Dame, or what?
What? Weird games happen like that all the time. You want to talk another one this week? Utah State at San Jose State.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Well,
we'll talk about that later. Get back to UNC Miami.
All right.
So what made that line make such a big move?
Yeah, no, we had sharp money on North Carolina.
Okay.
So that was why it moved as much as it did, as fast as it did. But when it get up to 7.5 and 8, people who laid the lower number could be taking it back, or other people just see a lot of value on the home team getting 7.5 in Miami, Florida.
Yeah, so have you gotten any sharp action on Miami, Florida at any point?
Yeah, I mentioned it plus 7.5 and plus 8. We do have Miami, Florida money. We're still at minus 7.5 just because of the early money kind of drowned it out. North Carolina at minus 6.5 and 7. So we're waiting to kind of get back till we're pretty much even right now. It's just been a really heavily bet game. So we're sitting back at 7.5 right now, getting good money on both sides, and we'll probably sit there until kickoff.
Okay, there you go. So I don't know what to tell anyone looking at this line at 8. I would take Miami, Florida, but those sharps who are buying it up at 5, 5.5, 6, they must know something. All right, and then let's look at Texas and Oklahoma. Huge game, Red River rivalry. That line hasn't moved too much. Is that a big volume game?
Well, the money's about 2-1 in favor of Oklahoma. The count's about 2-1 in favor of Oklahoma. There's some early action, sharp stuff on Oklahoma minus 3. The Texas money's coming plus 3.5. So it's a heavily bet game, yeah, but we've got balanced action both ways on that one, Peter. It's a marquee game. We're going to have a ton of action. I believe it's on ABC.
Right.
The count, like I said, is still in favor of Oklahoma, so we probably will need Texas small.
All right, that's pretty telling. So you didn't get any sharps taking Texas plus 3.5 then? Not much.
No.
Right.
Not laying it, not taking it.
All right. And then South Carolina at LSU, huge game. I have no opinion on that. What's the action been like on that so far?
it's been a heavily bet game. I mean, we do have some decent sharp money on South Carolina plus the 3. We're plus 3 minus 15 right now. The count's slightly in favor of South Carolina, but the money's even. It's just one of those games where it's been heavily bet. There was early money on LSU minus 2.5, and the South Carolina money came plus 3 minus 15. So now we're at plus 3 flat on South Carolina. Now our 3.15 is kind of evened out there. So it's a heavily bet game because it's a market game, but we don't need either side at this point.
And then there were 2 big moves. I'm very proud to say I got the best of both of these moves. Toledo minus 14, now it's close to 17, and Oklahoma State minus 22. Now it's all the way up to like 27.5. I assume those are both just pure sharp moves, moving on sharp money, right?
Well, you got to be happy about your bet when it wins, Peter, not just because it moved.
That's true. No, very good point. Very good point.
A lot of people will say, "Well, I'd rather lose getting a good number than win with a bad one."
Me.
I would just rather win my bet.
F the closing line.
Heavy action on Toledo for sure. We took a lot of money minus 13.5, and it went all the way up to it kind of died off at minus 16 in terms of the money on Toledo, but we still haven't got any back on Eastern Michigan. That's why we're sitting at 16.5. So we kind of crept up slowly until we found the number where people weren't laying Toledo anymore, which turns out to be minus 16. Went to 16.5, hoping we're going to get Eastern Michigan money back, but we haven't had any yet. Oklahoma State, that's the game where we have public and sharp money, all on Oklahoma State. That money came in on Oklahoma State minus 24, 25. We had really, really sharp money. The only time we got anything back on Kansas was a little bit at plus 28. We're sitting 27.5 now, but again, we really need Kansas to show up. The count's about 10-1 in terms of Oklahoma State, so we're not holding our breath to get any action there on Kansas.
That's one of those classic sharp and public lines. We saw a lot of those last year, Boise State, Alabama, stuff like that, and a lot of those sides won and burned the books last year. I remember that. All right, then let's talk about quickly the Mississippi-Auburn game. I noticed a lot of people when the line first came out, Mississippi was about minus 4, I think, and people thought that was a very good bet. Has moved up to about 5.5 or 6. Did the Sharps take Mississippi at that early number?
Actually, what I've got so far has been sharp money on Auburn when it was 4.5 and 5. I'm sitting at 5 right now. It's just the count is so heavy towards Mississippi in terms of the number of bets we've taken. We're still sitting at minus 5. It was minus 5.5 early in the week, but Sharps kind of crept in just slowly but surely, taking Auburn plus 5, plus 4.5. Our count in terms of the betting volume is about 3-1 on Mississippi, but our action in terms of dollars is even at this point.
Really? So that means that you've gotten that's a pretty distinct sharp public split game for you then, with the Sharps on Auburn?
Yeah, it's a lot of volume on Mississippi, and the Sharps that come on Auburn, it's been small. It's been pecking away on that game. The volume hasn't been as high on that game as others you might think.
All right, and then there's a bunch of home dogs that I want to ask you about. They all look like classic sort of home dogs with value that I would guess that the Sharps would bet on. First of all, USC at Washington. Again, USC's a big road favorite. I would think that Washington would be something that the Sharps would be betting. I'm not sure what the public would be doing. And also Louisiana Tech at home against Texas A&M. Are those? Is there any notable action on those games?
Yeah, the notable action on Washington has been plus 14. That was sharp money who took Washington. We're all the way down to minus 13 on USC. USC is typically a heavily bet side in terms of the public, but at this point, our betting volume on USC as a side has not been very strong. So right now we actually need USC minus 13. We may have to go below 13, but the sharp money did come in on Washington plus 14, even a little bit more at 13.5. So we're going to need some public money to come in on USC, Peter, before we can drop that line. That's
surprising, right? You're usually overwhelmed with USC money, right?
Yeah, usually we like it when USC loses. This is the case right now where you've got Washington's a decent home dog getting the 2 touchdowns I would have loved to have myself. Line's sitting at 13 right now. Maybe we've just scared money off, but public's not coming in touching it much on USC at all. A&M and Louisiana Tech, that's one of those games where people are split both ways. When the line went down to 7 on Texas A&M, where we are right now, we've had some people buying down to 6.5 on Texas A&M, but we do have sharp money on Louisiana Tech, plus 7.5, plus 8. So that's the case. I've seen the guys who've been coming in on it. It's kind of a case where they're taking Louisiana Tech above 7.5, and they're buying the half point on Texas A&M down to 6.5, hoping it lands 7 there.
Okay, then there's 2 games with interesting moves I want to ask you about: Florida Vanderbilt and Iowa State Kansas State. Florida, of course, beat LSU last week. Vanderbilt, though, has been covering very undervalued team so far on the year. Vanderbilt, though, they opened, I forgot where they opened, but the line's been creeping up, so the line's moving in Florida's favor. Has that been all public money, or is that actually sharp people taking Florida?
That's all public money pretty much on Florida. We did open -7, took a lot of money there. The count's actually 7-1 in terms of Florida, and the money's about 2-1 there. The only little bit of money we had back on Vanderbilt, we're starting to get some at +8.5, which is the line we're at right now, Peter. But it's just been a whole lot of public volume on Florida.
And the Sharps have only limped in on Vandy? They didn't pound it hard?
Good choice of words. Yeah, just a little bit of money on Vandy plus the 8.5.
Right. Okay, that's a little bit surprising. I would have expected a stronger opinion, but maybe that'll come like on Saturday, right?
Yeah, no, that sometimes happens. I mean, you can get even like an hour, half an hour before kickoff, you can get a flood of money all at once.
And then Alabama, before we get to the sharp sides, Alabama, of course, once again, enormous road favorite over Missouri. 21, what's the action been like on that? I would expect that same thing. Huge public action on Alabama and maybe some sharps on Alabama too.
Yeah, count has been about 6-1 in favor of Alabama. Peter, the money is 3-1. That is the case, though, where we do have public versus sharp action. We do have sharp action on Missouri. Really? They were taking 20 and 20.5, but it's just been so much public money on Alabama -21. We're still sitting there. So we're probably going to be sitting there 21 until kickoff, unless the sharps really come in and pound Missouri. But the only action we have on Missouri, +20.5, +21, and the public has been drowning out on Alabama. So that's a situation where we're in a good spot in terms of rooting for the home dog there.
Right. So Missouri is going to be the book side and the sharp side, Alabama the public side. All right. Before we move on to the NFL, talk to us about what other sharp sides have or totals caught your eye from the rest of the college football card Week 7.
Well, the Ohio State-Indiana game, that's another one where we've got good public money versus sharp money. As you can imagine, the public is on Ohio State, and we've got sharp money taking Indiana +18, 18.5. So right now we're at Ohio State -17.5. We're going to need the sharps to be right with Indiana, so that's one that I would look at. And again, Alabama, Missouri, that's another one where you got the publics on Alabama, sharps are on Missouri, and Stanford is a sharp side this week. They were getting, if you can get anywhere above a touchdown, sharps have been coming on Stanford. They're at Notre Dame. And one more I'll throw at you is Wisconsin. Wisconsin at Purdue. Wisconsin, the sharps have been buying 2+3 on Wisconsin. Right now we've got Purdue as a 2-point favorite.
Really? Okay. See, that Ohio State game is interesting because that just shows you that the sharp money, that the public money can drown out the sharp money. Because even though you're telling me your sharp action has been on Indiana, the line has still been creeping up, though. Yep,
that happens all the time.
Okay, and before we move on to the NFL, just talk to me quickly about the Utah State San Jose State that you mentioned before. What did you have to say about that?
Well, it's just interesting. That's a game where you wouldn't expect a whole lot of action on, but we have a ton of volume on it. It's just you get a case where public is split, and you can have two group, sharp groups that are split. And anytime we're at 2.5 on San Jose State, we've had a ton of money on them. Anytime we're at +3, -10, we've had a ton of money on Utah State. So the volume has just been crazy on that game, and you kind of think, why? No real reason. Obviously, you got two strong opinions on this game. Because we took 2.5 on San Jose State and +3, -10 on Utah State, we're San Jose State -3, dog 15 right now. We'll probably sit there, but it's crazy the amount of volume on that game, Peter.
No, I mean, I actually, one of the sharpest college football handicappers that I talked to in our videos picked that game as his game. He loves San Jose State. So have you gotten any sharp opinions on Utah State?
Well, our money's even right now, but our count is 2-1 on San Jose State. So we do have public money kind of twice as much on San Jose State, which indicates a little bit more sharp money on Utah State, Peter.
All right, okay. I think the sharp side in that one is still San Jose State. I'm siding with Steve from collegefootballwinning.com. All right, let's move on to part 2, NFL, okay?